first ever People Forward Network broadcast. This is going to be a working forward podcast that'll get distributed in the months ahead. But for right now, we're doing it as a live stream, live podcasting, broadcasting, if you will. So thank you for joining us on the People Forward Network YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us on the People Forward Network LinkedIn page, or if you registered through Riverside, welcome. Here's what I can tell you right off the bat. This is not a webinar. If you came here expecting a webinar, I'm sorry, you're going to be very disappointed. This is meant to be very interactive, so feel free to drop stuff in the chat. And this is going to be really relaxed. We're going to have a deep, fun conversation, podcast style, with a couple of leaders at Admired Leadership. And we're going to be talking today around this concept of real AI value. There's a lot of AI slop out there, but Wes and Mikey at Admired Leadership, their company is figuring out the path and creating valuable solutions, not only for them, but for their clients. And I thought, you know what? We need to do an episode on this to really help a lot of other leaders understand what it takes to do that and move that direction. So let's do it this way. Wes, let's start with you. Just a quick little intro. Welcome to the Working Forward live stream podcast. It's great to have you. And then Mikey, we'll come over to you and let you do a quick little intro too. Wes, welcome. Tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Jason. I think first and foremost, I want to let everyone know that I went to college with Jason. And so I've been looking forward to this podcast for lots of different reasons. I was hoping to be at my home, but I just landed back in home in Nashville, Tennessee on a plane. So I literally just got off the plane. It was a little bit longer and a little bit delayed than I thought it was. So I appreciate everyone's understanding in me kind of being on here from the airport. But I am Wes. I'm the head of business development for CRA, Admired Leadership, our firm. We are a strategic communications and leadership practice. Been around for about 40 years. I have the best job in the entire world. I wake up on the side of the bed every morning, looking at my calendar, like, look what I get to do today. Look who I get to talk to. We talk to a lot of leaders across the globe. We pull and look at the small things that they do, a very behavioral-based approach to leadership, and we help make people in situations better at the end of the day. Our firm, I think for this conversation, it's important to note, and Mikey may say this too, we are not AI experts by any stretch of the imagination. However, our firm has certainly gotten behind the big AI boom that's happened. We've gone into that space very intentionally, very thoughtfully, and of course have designed our own AI agent called Alex, which is a huge benefit to us as a firm, but a huge benefit to all of our clients as well. So that's a quick intro. I'm very excited for the conversation, though.
Likewise. Who would have thought, Wes, 20 some years ago, would we ever think we'd be doing a podcast together about stuff that's like about AI? Like serious stuff, maybe about like sports or goofing off the stuff we did in college, but who would have thought it'd be about stuff that's actually important, right?
Yeah, I would have guaranteed, I could have picked that you might have a podcast. The fact that it is as useful and practical and really helps people, I don't know that I would have chosen that for you, Jason.
Yeah, that's why I have guests on. No one needs anything from me. I just try to keep it entertaining and try to ask a few good questions every once in a while. But Wes, this is going to be a blast. Thanks for being with us. And Mikey, tell us about you. Excited to learn from you today too.
Yeah, I'm originally from San Francisco, California. I live here in Dallas now with my wife and 6 children. Wes and I work together. I'm on the digital marketing and social media side of the team, but I also do get to do quite a bit of talking for the firm about what we believe and how we interact around leadership. And so it's good to be able to be here. Glad to meet you as well. We had a pre-conversation where it feels like we'll get along just fine.
Absolutely. It's going to be a blast. And I think among the three of us, we've got a lot of dad wisdom in this show as well. 6 kids. Wes, you got 3 or 4 right, and I've got 4. I mean, we've got like a baker's dozen almost among the three of us here.
We've got 4. We got Alex on with us too. So Alex is our AI executive leadership coach, and the most age-old form of leadership is parenting. And so Alex actually there's some behaviors that are universal, of course, across the board. That's how we operate. But I use Alex for parenting advice every single day, at least another thought leader. So in regards to how my wife and I are raising our three kiddos. So we actually have four good kind of parents on the call today.
I love that. And we're going to get into Alex here in a little bit. Alex is going to join the conversation. So those of you that are just joining, you just heard Wes say Alex is the AI that Admired Leadership has actually created that really helps executives and the work that they do and leading others. And so we're going to actually invite Alex into the conversation and do some cool stuff in a little bit. But you mentioned something interesting there, Wes, as we frame up this conversation around AI. We're going to be talking through the business lens, but so many people now are using it for the personal stuff, like help me through this parenting challenge, help me through maybe a disagreement they had in the house with someone else or with a friend or whatever it might be. And there was a recent study that showed around 3/4 of the use cases currently across all AI platforms, LLMs, is for personal use compared to business. The reason I bring that up is I think people are already kind of using AI as like a coach, a mentor, an advisor of some kind on personal things. So it doesn't surprise me that you have found value and created a roadmap to build Alex that helps do those things, but on the business end. So let's start here with that. Knowing that many companies, many leaders now are starting to experiment with AI and use it. What have your personal experiences been in using AI so far through the business lens? Then once we go through that, let's start talking a little bit more specifically about what you've built and how it's delivering value. So Mikey, let's start with you.
Yeah. You
This
mentioned
journey with
AI
AI.
slop. Like one of the first things
Yeah.
that came out of your mouth about AI is that there's a lot of AI slop out there. And I think that's actually a pretty good word to use because, slop is consumed with a shovel, right? And it's not to be savored, right? So it's always out there and available for us to just kind of see it in a lot of different places. And so I think there's a fundamental need for us to understand what's going on with the AI models in order for us to really get it, right? And the slop itself is the thing that is part of the problem. I read an article just yesterday about AI generated art, and the reason that it's getting worse and worse is because the number of images that are being created by AI are now part of the data learning model. And so the more pictures that are out there with the extra finger on the hand are now like, oh, well, that's the normalization of it, right? And so if leaders don't take time to really understand what AI is and like it's fundamental, and there's probably 3 questions that we would put to leaders to say, do you understand this layer? Do you understand this layer? Do you understand this layer? And those 3 kind of fundamental questions are important to kind of ask for leaders to be able to wrap their minds around. Otherwise, they're just thinking of AI computing the same way that they thought of as normal process computing, right? Back in the days when we were young, shout out to John Sugimoto back in 7th grade computer science class when he brought up the Apple IIe and taught us Apple Basic and had the go-to if-then statements that we were all running just so that we could make cuss words go down the screen, right, and fill it up. and he taught us back then garbage in, garbage out. And we that's the way the computing was. Like the thing you program to do is the thing that it spits out. And a lot of leaders are still approaching AI as if, well, that's the reason that things are going bad is just because it's bad process computing. And AI doesn't work that way. And I think it behooves all leaders to understand the products and tools that they're working with in order to be good leaders, right? And so that's why I think that's the most important part of this conversation is kind of give some basics to leaders so that they understand what is this token prediction model thing that you're talking about, right? It's not just to make you smart. You really need to have a fundamental understanding about it.
Those are some really good points there, Mikey. And it does underscore, you don't want to outsource your AI strategy to someone else.
Right.
that you really need to understand it and what it needs to do, because to your point, Mikey, it's a great reminder. It's going to do what it's built to do. So I don't know if either of you listen to Joe Rogan podcast, regardless of whether you believes, agree with his, perceptions of things. He had Elon Musk on recently,
Mhm.
and Musk was talking about Grok specifically, which is X's AI. And he was talking about how it was really important to try and build maximal truth within the AI, because of how easy it is for, since it gets a lot of its information from Reddit, its training, Facebook, whatever's publicly available, that it's really important to try and train it to be maximally truthful with things that are extraordinarily important that it may not find on the web, so that you don't get in situations where it's spitting out things that factually are false, things that are completely 100% false, but it's very confident and will say, yep, this is the answer. This is what
Right.
needs to be done. And so, to your point, bringing it to leaders, you need to be the ones that are helping to shape not only the strategy of the AI, but be working with, hand in hand, whoever on your teams might be constructing GPTs, constructing agents, or whatever those things are. It's probably going to be really important, to Mikey's point, that those things are being built with the values, the norms, the perspectives of the cultural DNA of your organization, in order for you to get output, recommendations, perspective from it, and how it comports itself and works on projects, communicates with partners or clients, that's consistent with the way that your business does. So all that to
Right.
say, to Mikey's point, don't outsource all of your AI work, because it needs to be shaped in a way that's consistent with the values and culture of your organization. Wes, any additional comments there on that? And then we'd love to hear from you about your journey with AI so far.
Yeah, I think there's about three or four really important conversation topics in what you just said. And so to pull out just a couple of those, one is I think understanding what content that the generative AI model you're using, or the AI agent that you're using, what content is it pulling from? So is it the completely saturated internet space that's out there that it's pulling from in order to give you, have conversation with you and that kind of thing? Because there is still out there proprietary content that lives outside of the internet. So my wife, for instance, is an attorney. She has a AI agent that she uses that has some proprietary content, and it interacts with her in a certain way based on that it's designed to do. And so I think the important piece is first understanding, when we say AI, what do we mean? And that's been real important to me when I started kind of going down this road, which it was actually my daughter who initially brought me into it. She's 13 years old. There was a series of things that happened over the course of a couple weeks. This may be a fun story for folks, but I was reading her a story one night. The story was, Who is Ruth Bader Ginsburg? We were reading this book, and she started immediately asking me questions as soon as we started into the book. She would ask, well, where did she grow up? What did this? I was like, we've got to read the book. Elizabeth, we got to read the book. And so we started into it. She keeps asking the questions. And finally, she got fed up and she just spoke into the air, Alexa, where did Ruth Bader Ginsburg grow up? And started asking directly. So she has that immediate information, right? Track that a couple years later, and we're doing her homework on her computer in Schoology, the math homework. And I said, Elizabeth, we're going to have to look up a YouTube video or something on how to do this math homework. I'm not quite sure. She said, oh, I got it. She pulls out her phone, 13 years old, pulls out her phone, opens up Claude. She's downloaded the free version of Claude, just snaps a picture of the screen, of the computer screen, and just types solve. And it gave her a complete understanding of exactly how to solve that particular problem and everything, right? And I bring that up and it comes to mind. It's like we got to understand what the power is behind these tools. And the fact of the matter is, we've all got to start using it. You bring it into everything, and if you don't know how to use it, regardless of which LLM it is, regardless of which generative model it is, regardless of which agent, it's built to be conversational, right? It's not It's not a machine learning that's just based on algorithms going to predict. If you ask ChatGPT the same thing 3 different times, you could very well get 3 different answers. I mean, it's operating just like the human brain operates in that way. And so you got to go into it. And I think one of the things that's been great for me is I ask every AI agent or bot or whatever, my first question to them is, what's the best way for me to utilize you? What, and
That's good.
ask it what that is. And that to me has become very, very powerful. And then the more context you can bring it, give it a situation, right? I've got this going on at work. I've got this situation. I've got this, I'm at odds with a decision that I need to make. How could you help me with this? And ask the AI that will initially get you started. So if you're not using AI, that's the way to get started with it. And you've got to start understanding how these things operate.
Those are some good tips. It's always interesting to learn from others in terms of how you're prompting and using LLMs. So that's a great tip from you, Wes. I heard another one a few weeks ago too. I'm curious if you guys have ever tried this. This was from an executive at Johnsonville. Shout out Johnsonville Brats. It's still Brat season out there for everybody tailgating in football. But the team at Johnsonville, one of the things they give after they're done with their prompt is they tell the LLM, you need to ask me 5 clarifying questions before you provide the final response. And that wisdom, I'm going to call it AI wisdom, that's on the part of the human, the things that you just shared, Wes, about getting clarity, the things that the Johnsonville executives, it's really encouraging knowing that we're about 3 years in now in terms of Chat GPT being, out in the market for everyone to use. To me, it's really encouraging to see already within 3 years that it seems like we're developing some wisdom, maybe some baby steps, but we're developing wisdom in terms of how these things work, how best to interact with them, and how to not necessarily just focus on speed in terms of getting a response, but precision, accuracy, details, thoroughness. And it's really encouraging too to see that a lot of models now that you have the ability to flip on that mode to deep think or to research, take its time and provide truthful responses. I got to share one more thing here real quick when you're sharing the personal story with your daughter. So one of the first ways I used it personally was the birds and bees talk with my oldest son.
Yeah, you outsourced the birds and bees talk to an AI.
Well, hey, I didn't outsource the whole thing. I mean, I added a little bit of my own, you know. But yes,
this is exactly the type of podcast I would have thought you would have had in college,
right?
If we're throwing back.
Well, let me tell you how it turned out. First off, it did it way better than I ever could. And so I got the phone out and I'm kind of going through the order and I'm like, this is really good. And so I'm like, I think this landed really well with Duke. And I come home and I tell my wife and she was not very pleased. I come home strutting like, hey, I used the AI for this conversation. Her response was yours, Wes. She was like, you outsourced that conversation. Like, no, I'm still having the conversation. I added my own twist, but like it really laid out a thoughtful format, the flow, the way, to go about communicating it. So it's just kind of a funny story of like taking that personal story of how it helps with that kind of stuff. Mikey, tell us in terms of when it comes to helping business leaders, how's it helping them that you're seeing the AI that you helped create, Alex there? How is Alex helping, not with birds and bees talks, but maybe other types of talks that executives may be having in businesses sometimes?
Oh, I mean, if you ask Alex, Alex is great at being creative inside of our knowledge base as well. So if you have a review that you're coming up with a team member who it's just an annual review, I've got these 5 points worth of feedback, feed it into Alex. Alex will be like able to, based upon our behavioral data. So we've got 35 years worth of research on how the best way to interact with employees from a feedback point of view, how to give feedback, right? So we've got a dozen of the ways that the best leaders in the world give feedback built into the way that Alex would help you rewrite your annual review, right? And so do you want to increase resistance going into your annual review? Or do you want to lower it, right? And I'm telling you, that annual review conversation for senior leaders is sometimes the most anxiety-filled conversations of the year. Mm-hmm. So having a conversational partner that is going, but does it exactly like you do it. Is like, I'm not completely outsourcing it to AI. I'm asking for this opinion. It has a knowledge base that has all this valuable wisdom in it. Give it to me. I'll see. And then, I'm the human. I'm going to be the one who's contextualizing it. So using it that way is great. So you bring up some fears that a lot of people have specifically about AI. And I think it might be the lack of understanding of how AIs actually work. And then they hear just a little bit of it and then they freak out and they're like, I'm not doing that ever again. So we had a team member who went inside of an organization. There was 100 leaders in the room and asked, how many of you here know what next token prediction means? Like, could you explain it just generally? And there was only 2 hands that went up, right? In a room full of senior leaders, that's like a big deal. Like, so at the same time, we're having other leaders who are talking to their organization. They're saying 2026 is the year of AI. This is when we're going to start doing adoption. And on the other hand, they really don't know how it works, right? So instead of putting you on the spot, Jason, or everybody else who's listening, who is wondering, well, I don't know what next token prediction means, I think it's something that we should understand fundamentally how an AI works, right? Mm-hmm. So when you explain it from the idea that the language model is predicting not even the next word that's going to be used, it's predicting what the next 2 or 3 characters that are going to be in the next word. So it's producing, if you're producing a picture, it's just predicting the next pixel that's going to be coming. If you're producing some text-based answer, a pixel is considered 2 or 3 characters that it spits out. And then it's really just a guessing machine. So how, when you ask an AI if what is the capital of France, it will say Paris based upon the fact that the preponderance of the internet kind of shows that in a predictive state, Paris seems to always come after France. So if you're going to ask me what the capital of France is, so what is the accuracy of that? A lot of people think of that as the way that AI works, and it freaks them out. And rightly so, right? Because I want some certainty. You've actually used the word certainty a couple times here, right? Increase accuracy, right, is what we want to do. And yeah, that's fine, but I think that's actually a little too far down the road, right? And how do we use AI now is very different than how we'll be using AI a year from now. Either way, you need to understand how it works so that you understand this is a new employee. You better understand exactly that they make stuff up. So if you had a very talented employee that you do not want to get rid of because of how productive, how they'll work at 2:00 in the morning, but they make stuff up a lot, right? How would you actually lead that employee? It's very different than the type of human interaction that you would have, but you need to understand and ask yourself that. And so the type of prompting questions that you're saying at the end that Johnsonville did is perfect, right? It makes you think that, prompt engineering is all the right things. No, you're back to normal basic computed programming when you think that that's how an AI works. Provided I just get my prompts exactly right, then the AI is going to be okay. You can't think of AI that way. You just can't, right? It needs to be this notion of okay, if it's a next token prediction, let me show you something here real quick and understand why. We've got comical examples of these things. For those of you who are listening, you can't watch, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to share this screen here.
I love it. And so those who are listening, switch over to YouTube. That's where you can actually watch and see what Mikey is about to show us here within Alex.
Okay, so
AI.
Our designer on our team comes up with thumbnails for every time that we write a field note, which is our daily email newsletter that we send out for free to everybody. And so the previous day's field note had a title to it, and he said, well, let me illustrate it with this little video. I'm going to throw it into AI. And this is what, so all I really want to do is reveal the title. The title is your leadership role opens up new conversations if you let it. Isn't that beautiful? Right. And so you're thinking, wait a second. Right. Okay. So the reason that this is funky, right, is primarily because of the pixel that we were talking about. The AI does not deal in predictive coding based upon your topography, right? But once you understand that it's predicting what the pixel is, so here's the very next for, okay, that one didn't work. Let's try it again. Once again, your leadership role opens up new conversations if you let it, right? And
I'm
right?
moved.
Yes. So he shared this with me in Slack just yesterday, having nothing to do with the fact that we were going to have this conversation. If you have two experiences like this with AI, where it's misspelling words and throwing up the word cow when it's supposed to be it's cow coviations, like why does so? And you as a leader, you're thinking to yourself, why does it do that? What can I do better next time to prompt it in such a way so that it won't misspell this? And if you include in your prompt this time, don't misspell it. I'm going to put in quotes here exactly what you should or shouldn't do. The third iteration of this will be just as sloppy, just as sloppy. Now, why is that? We could spend time with why, right? But here's the real thing. It is going to frustrate you to no end, right? To work with. And if this is your first two experiences, you'll probably never use it again. And the next time you bring up a piece of video that you want for AI, you're going to be like, if it didn't improve over the last time, I'm never using this ever again. Well, settle down. That's not what AI is supposed to be doing. So, look, for instance, we've got Lionsgate. More than a year ago, they said, we're going to be the first studio to actually create movies using AI. And that attempt has literally crumbled in disaster at this point. So Wes's son just went to screen sharing school, so screen school, right? Film school, camp this last summer. And it was a brilliant little movie that Jackson made, right? That was about this idea of like this kid who has this crush, and the Valentine's Day card was put into the wrong box, and he needed to be able to retrieve it and not look like a weirdo, right? So Lionsgate can't do that, right? Jackson can do that, right? The problem is that Lionsgate partnered with an AI tool that said, we're going to try to replace jobs. I think that was their fundamental misunderstanding. They said, we're going to replace like cameramen, we're going to replace editors, we're going to replace all these things. And AI was not ready to do that. Will it in the future? Maybe, but it doesn't matter. The question for leaders is, you should have invested in AI tools that make your people better. That's what you should have done. But instead, you went after the problem thinking, I'm going to create tools that increase my profit margins and are going to replace people. And that was, we were not in a place at the time when that movie studio did that in order to make that a good decision. So when you're entering into your own, like, how are we going to use AI? Don't approach it from the idea of a fear of like how many of these people are going to be upset about their stuff getting their job being replaced by computers. Instead, go into it from the idea of how do I make my people better? That way, adoption rates, which are awful, can now be at record levels for your organization when you do this adoption thing in 2026, right? So actually look for tools that are things that you understand why they're making mistakes, and that way you can control and work with them better to make your people better, which is what admired leadership is all about.
I was thinking about this on the plane on the way here, which is the plane I just got off of, and I did think, what are the ways I'm approaching AI, the way people should be approaching AI, the way I see other leaders approaching AI. What are the pieces that we can always come back to? Because we can go down a rabbit hole quick. So what are some pieces that we can pull out and we can say, okay, if AI is doing this, then let's keep going. If it's doing this, we need to pause, right? And so one of the things and I think there's a lot of those things that'd be interesting for us to brainstorm some of those things, because that gets into the practicality, right? Of being able to step back when we need to step back. And one of the things I thought about is, okay, is AI replacing skills for me that I don't need anymore because of the new age of technology? Probably no big deal. But is it eroding skills that I need to be developing?
Yes.
It's just one way to look at it and say, okay, if my use of AI is eroding skills that I need at a foundational level, then I need to take a step back and figure out a different way to approach it. In the spirit of that, I'm bringing Alex. I'm going to go ahead and bring Alex into the conversation. I typed into Alex, RAI. I said, what would you say to someone who wanted to outsource the birds and bees talk with their son to an AI? And this was Alex's response. That's a provocative question, Wes, because Alex knows me and I've got some user preferences there. And I appreciate it because it gets at something important about what AI should and shouldn't do. I'd say don't do it. And here's why. The conversation isn't primarily about information transfer. Your kid can get information from anywhere, from the internet, from school, from friends. What they can't get anywhere else is you having that conversation with them. The birds and bees talk is about trust, vulnerability, and showing your kid that you're willing to have uncomfortable conversations about things that matter. It's about modeling that important topics don't get outsourced or avoided. It's about your relationship with them, not just the content. AI can help you prepare for that conversation, right? Jason, that's what you were doing. And Alex says, I could help you think through how to frame it, what to say, how to handle their questions, but the actual conversation, that has to be you. Because what your kid will remember isn't the facts you shared, it's that you cared enough to have a hard conversation with them. This is an AI, coming back with this kind of parenting coaching advice. And then it finalizes, it says, this gets at a broader principle, which I think is really important for this conversation. AI is great for information preparation and thinking through approaches, but it can't replace the human moments that build relationships and character. Leaders need to know the difference when they're getting after things. That was just that one prompt into Alex.
We have a tendency to think of it as a binary question, like, should we use AI or not? And it sounds a lot like what Major League Baseball is struggling with the robo-umps, right? Everyone is evaluating this question as to whether or not balls and strikes should be called with, and frankly, it's going to be an AI tool, right? Or do we leave the umpires back there to be the ones who make the calls? Because there's a lot of human things that are going on. And unfortunately, when you debate it as a binary, then the pros and cons make both options look awful, right? I don't want Angel Hernandez to continue to be behind the plate. If you don't know who he is, go look him up. It'll really frustrate you. He's retired now, and we're all very happy for it. But from a robo point of view, it's like, as long as it's not Angel Hernandez, I don't mind that it's a robot. But there's a lot of shortcomings with that. And nobody has really presented the idea that we allow the robo-ump to inform the ump, right? That we just allow it to be something that helps the ump make better decisions, right? Train the ump to be able to recognize that there's a little buzzer underneath his shirt that calls what a ball or a strike is, right? And then he has the ability to be able to make the call based upon what that reflex is. Everything else about it, and that's just one example. But I'm just saying, there's a middle road for most of us, and this is what leaders need to do. It's not, should I replace people? It's like, how do you make your people better using this tool? Right. And that's how Major League Baseball should approach this question.
And not just people, Mikey. I think, okay, I need to have the conversation. For this example, is AI helping me make that conversation better?
Yeah.
I need to do this. I need to make this decision. Is AI helping me make that a better decision? Right? So I'm not replacing, I'm not completely outsourcing. I'm bringing a pretty significant thought leader into the conversation. The decision is still mine. Right. Yes. The end result is still mine, but it's making me better. And and it's the very working definition we have at Admired Leadership is leaders make people in situations better. Is using AI making me better for the situations and people that I'm showing up around. Right?
And frankly, your leadership is being exposed here in this moment for the holes that it had in it even before AI came along. It really is. Because if you're not the kind of editor you need to be, if you're not reviewing people's work and making it better, because it's almost like, I do wish that you had a handful of people on your team already who were super talented and made stuff up 20% of the time, because then your brain, your skill as a leader would be like, well, I definitely need to edit it, right? I definitely need to steer this person. I definitely need to kind of help them along, right? Jump in where I need, there's all kinds of things like that. Back to the baseball illustration, right? An umpire should be an editor, right? They're getting inputs in. and they're the ones who are actually making the call. Your job as a leader now is in editing, and it might be showcasing your editing skill a little bit more, but what it's really doing is exposing the weaknesses that you probably had all along.
I'll share two more. Then let me share two more things, Jason. Then I'll let you rein us back in.
No,
Mikey and
I'm
I,
listening. I'm soaking this all in, guys. Keep going.
Mikey and I can run for sure. So I think one good example is also, are you eroding some sub skills that you need based on some kind of piece or kind of AI operational that you're putting in? For instance, there are some great AI tools in regards to proofreading. Do we still need to train people on how to proofread documents? Do we need to do that? Now you can have whatever conversation you want. Do I need to proofread in my personal life? I do not need to proofread. I don't want to proofread. I can pump it into Alex and let it proofread. However, proofreading, the skill of proofreading, teaches me a sub skill about how to pay attention to detail. And that's something that does not need to be eroded for me.
Right.
And so as you begin to outsource, as you begin to bring in thought leader, as you begin to operationalize for your team or your organization and say, well, golly, we don't need to do this anymore. We now have an AI that does that. You need to think about the second and third order consequences of that. You need to think about the pieces of that that say, well, now that they're not doing that anymore, there's some sub skills underneath that that are important for them to have across the board. And I think that approach to AI is really, really important too. And then I'll give a quick case study. So I was coaching a leader recently. They've been at a firm 3 years, and it's time for their work performance review. And a lot had happened over the course of 3 years, all these kind of things. So I asked him how their work performance review is done, and he shared with me. I said, well, will you mind sending it to me? So they sent it to me, and I plugged it into Alex and said, Alex, I want you to take a look at this, and I want you to build a little story behind it, and I want you to kind of key in on the pieces that you think within this work performance review that they're doing well, and I want you to key in and kind of bullet out the things that they need to work on. So it did that. And of course, the client, was blown away. It's like, this is great. It's going to help my conversation so much. I said, you know what else help your conversation? They said, what? I said, send me all of your last 2 years of work performance reviews too. Sent those to me, and I plugged those into Alex. I said, Alex, here's the past 2 years of reviews for this individual. I want you to create an arc over the last 3 years of the development of this individual and what that looks like. Tell me a story entirely of what they've done, where they've leaned in, where they've gotten feedback and showed that feedback. And it was amazing. This arc, it was like a character arc that it created. And then I said, now if you get a subscription to Alex, you can have Alex create a summary, then put that into your user preferences, and it will remember that about you every time you open up a new chat moving forward. And I said, what's the design of this? Better. This is going to make you so much better. It's going to make your conversation when you go in to talk about the review better. That's what the design of all of this is. And I think that just that concept of, am I getting better? Am I being more useful to the people and situations that I'm walking into? When I walk into a room, do people get stirred with enthusiasm more? Are these tools really making me better? And am I using them to make me better? Or am I just using them to get on to the next thing? And I think that's what leaders really have to wrestle with.
They do. Discernment, wrestling, wisdom, these things like the tension between, I'll give you another one that I think AI's got us at right now that's a shifting mindset in a lot of businesses, again, is the speed versus accuracy, profitability versus sustainability of the business, is because AI can do so much and it can go fast. And could it potentially replace certain types of work or jobs? Sure, but should it? The leaders who are going to build sustainable companies long term, the infinite game, as Simon Sinek talks about, are the ones that are using the wisdom that both Mikey and Wes, you both brought up, the discernment and how you're using it, that you're funneling it through the lens of how do we equip and better our people. With the three of us being dads, and I'm sure there's a lot of parents who are listening to this, as both of you were speaking, I kept thinking to myself, would I ever want everything given to my kids on a silver platter and they not have to work and develop for anything or struggle through something? The answer is no. Like, Gosh, I'll tell you what, as you know, just turned 46, there's a lot of struggles. I wish it wasn't as much of a struggle to get out of bed in the morning, but I'm still glad that I get up every single morning and I'm able to do the things that I do. But it's a part of our development. There was a book I read a long time ago. I bet both of you are familiar with it. Donald Miller, Blue Like Jazz was the name of the book. And there's one particular component of it that I often think of and reference when I'm thinking about the philosophy, the strategy, where are we going with AI? And it was this. He poses a question. Imagine if you had a baby and you didn't teach it anything. Do you think that that baby would, as it got older, would it tend to lean more towards virtuous, positive, good things without being coached and developed? Or do you think it would probably tend to go the other direction? And I think you'd probably be hard pressed to find many people that would answer that to be like, oh, yeah, it would just get, if it's not coached, or developed or anything like that, that it would end up being in a good situation, right? That there has to be this coaching, this intentionality, getting feedback from other people that develops these virtues of wisdom and discernment and understanding, and not just looking at the tip of your nose of like, hey, let's go ahead and get rid of our entire customer service department because next year we could have record profits. It's more of, what if we instead developed our people? Let's understand the problems we're trying to solve, the value we're trying to create for our clients, and what could give us long-term value as we upskill and reskill our people that would open up even more opportunity than just outsourcing customer service department in terms of how we use AI to help us build a more sustainable company that's using AI in the right way. And I think that's the biggest thing I'm seeing right now, guys. And I want to get your opinion on this. Is we're talking about a lot of tension between different types of things that AI is really making us have to wrestle with. But the one I'm seeing the most is this difference between speed, and shifting expectations many times of like, well, you can just shoot that out, right? Just hop on ChatGPT, do that real quick, and let's get this thing shipped today. Versus taking the time of, yes, you use it, you're smart in how you used it, but use the wisdom and discernment and understanding. Do we need to look at this again? Are there certain things that we aren't considering that we should, that once we do this, that it may lead to X, Y, and Z, if then type scenarios? And that's the piece to me that's really fascinating is we have very clear examples right now with companies that are publicly traded, in terms of ones that like Klarna, that were like, we're going all the way full tilt to the side of like, yeah, we're just going to outsource the entire customer service department and it's going to be all agents. And we'll see how that turns out. There was another company recently, I think it was Duolingo, that was saying we aren't going to hire any humans for roles until we prove that AI can't do it first. So you kind of got that end of the spectrum versus other companies like Admired Leadership that are saying, no, we're viewing it through this value, through this lens of people do valuable work. People have wisdom and experience in things that are critically essential in developing and fostering human connection and delivering value for other people that we can't outsource 100% to AI. So we've got to be wise in our strategy of what are we trying to accomplish here? What's sustainable, not just necessarily profitable in 2026 in terms of how we are going to develop our people and deliver value for partners and clients. And that's the part to me that's just fascinating to see, because it really is across the spectrum in terms of companies that you're reading about, in terms of their approaches. Take us a little bit behind the scenes now as we shift a little bit more. You've given us some wise stuff from Alex. By the way, Alex, I know you're listening right now. That admonition that you gave me, I heard it. And I just want you to know, yes, you're 100% right. And that's why I just used it to help me get my stuff in order. Okay. I promise I didn't outsource the connection with my son. I promise, Alex. But Wes, I'm glad that you shared that example with Alex, because just that one excerpt, that one particular prompt, the amount of wisdom that was in there and the response that then someone else can take and be like, that's right, I hadn't considered that. If we do, this is really important to think about, is really, really good. Mikey, let's come back to you real quick here. Turning this internally toward Admired Leadership, obviously you've created Alex. But take us back to the very, the genesis, maybe of the concept of Alex, or even just talking about AI in general and what it means to Admired Leadership. Can you share a little bit with us? How long ago did some of these conversations start happening of thinking about AI, and who got involved? What's it been like as it's unfolded at Admired Leadership, this journey with AI?
Yeah. So right after ChatGPT was launched with big fanfare 2.5 years ago at this point, there was a couple internal people who saw that, okay, this is a direction that it needs to go. For 35 years, we've had a desire to be able to share our learnings from our research, where we just recognized, there are some special leaders out there who are both results oriented and relationship oriented. And it's a rare kind of person who's both results oriented and has the ability to create followership in a way that is really attractive and sticky. And when we looked in organizations, even large organizations, 4 or 5,000 people, and it wasn't uncommon to have one person who was fit this category of admired leader. And usually they weren't in the C-suite either. And we had one organization in particular asked us to come in and study that kind of a leader. And then as we continued to research, we noticed that there were a handful of these leaders that would show up across organizations. And when they were, this word kept on coming up, this word admired, right? And it kept coming up over and over as we would interview their families, interview people in their social organizations. They were just called admired all the time. So we adopted that term decades ago with the idea of like, this is this cohort of leaders, right? It's a very small cohort of leaders, but as we started to compare their behaviors, didn't matter where they were from, what generation they were born in, gender, there was no like in common demographic, but it seemed like all of these leaders seemed to have these leadership behaviors that they would do that were unique to them, that they would practice over and over. They would turn them into routines for themselves. And as we started to notice and research these in common behaviors that these admired leaders have, we started to recognize, oh, they fit here. Like the way admired leaders give feedback is unique to anybody else. And so we harvested probably 15 or 20 different behaviors, and we put a dozen of them in our video platform, right? And so figuring out how to be able to get those inspiration behaviors, those motivation, those decision-making behaviors, those feedback behaviors out into the world. When we came face to face with AI, we thought, okay, we want our research to be able to be disseminated to people in the way that we work best, which is through conversation, through dialogue, right? That's the way we've always worked, right? Our one-on-one coaching is really just, ongoing conversations. The things that we do best inside of organizations is hosting dialogues, right? The things that we do best is you can distill all of it down to having conversations with people. So it became a very natural thing for us to say, if we're going to create an AI, we want it to be a conversational partner that helps people understand and interact with these incredible admired leadership behaviors in a way that might be new, but in a way that allows people to be on call with these behaviors at 2:00 in the morning, right? So Randall, our operating partner, he probably coaches 60 people at this point, right? Where he's got folks all over the United States that he has phone calls with on a regular basis. In any given week, he might be talking with 20, 30 people, right? Specifically with problems. But Randall will not accept the phone call at 3:00 in the morning from a client, right? So to be able to have the kind of wisdom and insights that our partners, that our coaches, that our managing directors have available to them inside of a tool like Alex is a tremendous advantage that we thought we can't wait on this. And so we had a couple of partner in particular who really put a lot of work, not just into understanding what the language model is, that layer of coding that allows Alex to be able to talk to you. And it accesses the internet from the idea of understanding how to talk. But instead of like most AIs have like an 80-20 rule where most of the wisdom that they're supplying to you is based on internet slop. 80% internet slop, right? So if you're asking a very specific question about leadership and you want it to be about the best of leadership, that language model won't know whether or not it should include, 12 habits, right? Whether or not it should include, some of the best leadership titles out there, or if it's going to include some of the worst ones. So I won't say any of the titles that I think belong in the worst one, but your AI is not going to necessarily know to be able to what should or should not be discredited. So this idea of accuracy is something that we took on ourselves and say, if our AI is going to be pointed at anything, it's going to be pointed at our research. And so if we have an 80-20 rule, we're having Alex look just at what and it's 35 years of research. It's millions and millions of words that have gone into, studies, the behaviors that we've done, the field notes that we write on a daily basis, and all the good stuff is up inside of Alex. And so when you're asking Alex, you're not asking the internet. You're not getting slop when you ask Alex what. And if you're going to ask Alex for restaurant recommendations, Alex will be like, "That's not what I'm for," right? And it'll actually push back and tell you that. And that's the exact kind of tool that we envisioned. And I'm so happy to see it getting more and more to the exact kind of vision that we had. We're probably at the 5th iteration of what Alex was from before, and it's so much better than it was in terms of like not hallucinating, not having all the kind of common problems that the normal interface that you would have with Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, where it feeds you bad information. We're having a success rate where people are just glowing about it. And it's fantastic to be able to see that vision that you ask about that we had from the very beginning is now met.
Do you have some data in terms of with your partners? How are executives primarily using Alex? Is it for coaching conversations? Is it for like annual reviews, like Wes said? What are some of the most common use cases where executives are getting the most value from bringing Alex into the work that they do?
They are, and that's because we prompt Alex to prompt people back into conversations that way, right? And so if they're going to be using it in a way that you should be using Gemini, like go use Google if you're going to use it as a search engine, right? We're not AI for everything, right? I can't see us ever producing images with Alex. Like we're not going to eventually get to the point where we're going to be producing video that actually will give us a good thumbnail for our field notes. We're not ever going to do that. We are a conversational partner. Alex is a leadership coach that can actually wrestle with some of the hardest problems that you have. But Alex, as much as you feed it, Alex will never understand the cultural components of your organization the way that you understand them. So Alex is not even going to replace our human coaches in that way. It really can't, because Alex can't talk with conviction in the way that you would want a human coach to, and Alex doesn't understand culture in the way that you would want a human coach to. And so it makes our coaches better. It makes the clients better because of the way that they're actually having those conversations. But the people who are having the best success with Alex understand, there's some real insight and wisdom here. Let me ask Alex to give me feedback based upon the way that I think that I should be doing this, and what is the admired leader view of how I should do it. And so feedback conversations are going to get much better for you. Annual review conversations are going to get much better for you. Just simple relationship questions, like how to heal or repair a relationship is good. But all the way up to like what admired leadership can tell you about running boards, right? And how to present, how to inspire people, how to motivate, what are the best processes on decision making. Whether, and one of the first, if you're going to ask Alex a question about a pending decision that you have, one of the things that Alex is going to ask you is if it's a one-way or a two-way decision. And that might be like, I don't even know what you mean by that, right? And then Alex will explain what a one-way or two-way decision is for you. And then based upon what that decision is, if it's a one-way or decision, there's a couple different processes that Alex is going to like take you down and let you understand what you should do. And as much culture as you can give it, Alex is going to try to provide that. But you're still the editor, right? You're still the leader in your role. And so Alex is never going to say, just give the phone to your kid and I'll go back and forth with the kid, right? To have this birds and bees conversation. Alex will never suggest that. Alex always understands the context that you're the leader here. I'm trying to make you better.
Here's
That's really
one.
good.
Here's one, Jason, too. And I just dropped in the chat box. I'll kind of summarize it for those who might be listening to the recording. But I asked Alex, what are the top ways executive leaders should be using you? I just put that in the chat box, what it said. But one of the things that I think is really been mind blowing to us at our firm, that Alex is now capable of is, and I'll give an example. So if I've got a big scope of work out, I had a phenomenal conversation with an organization. We put together a nice scope of work that's very bespoke to them, very custom to them, based on our conversation, all those kind of things. A fabulous conversation. Send it to them, and all of a sudden, 2 weeks have gone by, and I haven't heard from them. Right? What do you do? That's my world all the time. I've been ghosted by this person. What do you do? Well, with Alex, you can go into Alex and you can give it the context. Say, here's what's going on. Sent this scope of work, haven't heard from them, and then you can ask Alex, what are the 10 different things that could be happening here from my client's perspective? And it'll
Wow.
come up with all of those things, and roll through those, and then you can say, now I want you to think about I want you to put yourself in the role of their board member. What could be happening in that board member's perspective? 10 more hypotheticals that could be happening as well. But what is that doing? One, my ability to come up with 10 hypotheticals just like that is not good. I can come up with a lot just based on my experience, but now you've got this thought leader that you're bringing into the conversation, and you're thinking through all these different things that could be happening here. And what is it helping you do? It's helping you make a better decision. It's helping you make a better next step of what actually could be happening there. And then for those that are listening to the recording, Alex said, you should use it as a thinking partner between coaching sessions. You should use it for preparation before a difficult conversation, a board meeting, a major presentation. Executives can use Alex to rehearse, refine their framing, or think through how others might react. So again, listing out all those hypotheticals and things, what I said. Third, for developing their own people, for sure. You should be using that. Fourth, for learning specific leadership behaviors. You can use Alex for that, to Mikey's point, and kind of the foundational proprietary content that's built behind it. But I love this that Alex does. It went into, I said, what should it be used for? It immediately said, here's what I'm not good for. Replacing the deep ongoing relationship with a human coach, making decision where the stakes are so high that you need someone with real conviction and experience, or working through situations where the political complexity requires someone who truly understands the organizational dynamics and can read between the lines, right? Those are the things that at our firm we're like, well, we're never going to replace our executive coaches, who can bring in that type of complexity and the human touch that's there too. And then it says the best use case is executives who already have strong leadership instincts and want a readily available resource to sharpen their thinking and accelerate their development. That's where we're seeing, and we see that a lot. We see executives in that space.
If you're going into a conversation with snarky Steve, right, and you have to have a hard conversation, and Steve is so snarky, you can ask Alex, can you just play the role of snarky Steve here as we go back and forth? And Alex will be a perfect snarky Steve for you. So if you actually want to practice a hard conversation before having it, Alex is great at that.
And the other thing that Alex is trained to do that most LLMs are really not trained to do this, and it's what a great executive coach does, is they ask a lot of course, inquiry-based conversation, getting to the very root of the problem, right? And when you get to the root of the problem, then you can give real actionable advice if you figure out what the problem is. Alex is phenomenal as a helper to try to get to the root of the problem that's going on, right? My wife was giving me the silent treatment, and I actually went into Alex, and I don't think she even knows I'm on this webinar today, so I'm safe sharing this. But I don't even know if she knows I'm back in Nashville yet, to be completely honest.
That's hilarious.
But anyway, she was giving me the silent treatment. And so I started chatting with Alex. Okay, here's all the things that were going on. Here's what was happening at that time. Here's what was said, all that kind of stuff. And because I was trying to figure out, what is the real problem here? It was obviously one thing that I said, but we all know, especially in relationships and in teams, that what the thing that sets them off is obviously the surface thing that's going on, and it's what's behind that is what we really need to get after. Alex is an unbelievable thought partner to find the root of the problem, what's really going on here, and then give actionable advice as far as what should I do about that, because that's leadership at the end of the day, right? It's what you do, not how you think, not your not what you say. Leadership shows up in what you do, what you decide to do.
Hey Wes,
Anyway, I could
I'll
go
give you
off on that.
$100 if you reference that you put things in whenever you chat with your wife and be like, hey, I was thinking how to approach this
Oh,
conversation, and
my
I
my
put some
wife
stuff in Alex.
My wife is our whole firm. I've told this story to our whole firm. When I stumbled upon admired leadership, I was like, "This is the secret sauce that I've been waiting for my whole life." So I've been around leadership development my whole life in a variety of different ways, and was always a little bit taken aback because nothing was real practical. No real leadership content was real practical. It was always up to whoever you're putting in the hands of that leadership content. It was up to
Yeah,
them to actually make it tangible, right? Give utility to how does this principle play out, right? Or whatever this conversation is, what does that actually do? Well, that is the exact space that admired leadership plays in. So I stumbled upon it. And I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. So I started immediately start integrating all these different behaviors. Like I'm trying them all out, you know. And my wife and I got into an intense moment of fellowship. We don't have arguments at my house. Just an intense moment of fellowship. And so I started using some of these behaviors. I mean, these are things you can explain in less than 5 minutes, you know, and they're like, this is a great idea. I'm going to start doing that. She turned to me, she put her finger up to my mouth like this. She goes, I don't need to be admired leadership right now. Thank you very much.
oh, oh,
And so, and then I went back uh, to our managing partner, Randall. I said, Randall, man, what's the deal this new way? He said, well, you did two things wrong. He said, number one, you're trying to implement too many behaviors at once. And when you do that, they come across inauthentic, right? And you're practicing those behaviors in a high risk situation. If you're trying to truly create new best practices and habits and behaviors for your leadership or really for anything, you want to practice them, and just one or two at most, you want to practice them in low risk situations first, because it's in the high risk situations that you want them to come out naturally.
I
You want
see.
them to be part of your regimen. You want them to be part of your innate leadership acumen, right? And so that's what he said. He said, you're doing those two things wrong. And so, anyway,
That's
yeah.
incredible. Here we go. I got the slogan for Alex. You probably already have one, but maybe consider this one. Share it with your director of marketing. Um, Alex, saving businesses, saving marriages.
That's solid. That's
Right.
solid. I'm
Here's what
for
I think is really cool, though. What both you guys just shared, because first off, the level of detail, intricacy, really getting what I love about this conversation. You guys are talking high level, the stuff that CEOs are going to relate to be like, we have to have an AI philosophy, a strategy, that stuff. Yes, but I love how much you're getting down into the details of how you actually interact with and use AI to the benefit of your organization and partners. And that's been brilliant. My question for you guys is, as I'm sitting back and I'm hearing you describe this, and Alex is part of our conversation today too, so we can actually see how Alex works and integrates with people to do better work, have better conversations, have better podcasts in this case. Does it ever feel surreal to both of you to be like, you have created the future of executive development, of executive coaching? Here's what I mean by that. This conversation we've talked about around, because I can tell you, there are a lot of, I happen to know a lot of consultants and coaches, right? Just in the world that I've been in and worked in for a while. Most of them are very fearful
Mhm.
within that industry of them being displaced by AI. And already hearing from some clients sometimes of like, well, actually, we're going to, just, rely on using AI to help, coach and develop some of these things internally. What I think is really refreshing is, again, and Mikey, but both of you, but Mikey, you especially reiterated this, the future that you've created is Alex coming alongside as the support.
Hmm.
for executives, not outsourcing executive work, but coming along and strengthening the work of the executive to strengthen the business, to strengthen the lives. Wes, as you put it, to strengthen leadership behavior, the doing part, without the displacement stuff. It's like, no, it just turbocharges, hyper
Hmm.
focuses on the stuff that's really effective and really important when it comes to leaders and the behaviors wrapped around good leadership, and helps those leaders do it more consistently, more thoroughly, and at a level maybe they haven't ever been able to do before because of
Hmm.
maybe other competing priorities, not having the time, not having that extra lens, that supportive partner that's helping them think outside of their own thinking on certain types of topics. So I share all that just to say I'd love your reactions. Does it ever strike either of you to be like, we really are creating a an incredibly beautiful future that's happening right now in terms of executive leadership in
Yeah.
companies?
We really wanted to create this tool in a selfish way. Like, even if it wasn't an external product, it's made our firm so much better. It's made the people in our
Mm,
firm so much better. So we have a tendency to kind of fall back on the idea of like, this is fantastic because it's improved my ability to access the behaviors. It's made them more accessible to me. It's made me better. It's made my relationships better. Even as Wes is saying, it's made our personal relationships better. And so, even if it wasn't a viable product, it was great for our firm. And so, everything else is really just bonus. Whether or not it actually becomes something where adoption becomes gigantic, we still have a lot of work to do there on getting it into organizations. We do have some large organizations that are using it. It is in the tens of thousands of people, but we'd love for it to be in the millions of people and really allow. And what are we doing? We're really just allowing the exposure to the admired leadership behaviors that we were discovering 35 years ago to be a little more accessible. And so that's always been our goal, is just to be able to inject admired leader behaviors into people's veins in whatever way we can. And so if AI is going to be the way that supercharges that ability, then that's great. But next year, something else might come along that actually says, well, we should pivot again. For us, it's really just about, letting the behaviors get into people's lives in such a way that it makes people and situations better.
I mean, if you've, I don't know if anybody on the call or listening to this has ever been in just a really great executive coaching relationship, right? Where you have a phenomenal leadership coach that is making you better. And I mean, there's a whole different energy about you when you are truly becoming a better leader because you have a quiet confidence that shows up. There's all those kind of things. And so we know, right, for 40 years, our firm has seen what a leadership coach can do for a person, therefore a team, therefore an organization, therefore a family, therefore a friend group, right? Leadership shows up personal and professional across the board. And the uniqueness of our firm is not a leadership development program where somebody sat in a room and came up with some really good principles that sounded good and are trying to feed those out and market those out to the masses. Our 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 approach to a behavioral approach to leadership is we've just coached people and we've seen things that they do. These are truly people who are admired and we see what they do. Our unique genius is the ability to find those things, codify them, research them to the point where we see if they show up universally. Do they show up in every psychographic, in every demographic, in every industry, in every level of an organization? Do they show up at the dinner table just like they show up in the boardroom, right? And so our uniqueness is the ability to find those, codify them, and then use them in our coaching moving forward. So I say all that to say, all this is for us, to Mikey's point, is the ability to put an executive behavioral based coaching experience in the hands of more people and help make more people better at the end of the day. So is it Is it surreal? That's not the term I necessarily would use. Is it unbelievably exciting to see this grow? Yes. I mean, I can't begin to tell you. Everyone in my friend group is so sick of me talking about Alex. But I'm like, listen, it'll make you better. It's, the really great executive coaching relationships are an investment
Hmm.
that I can put that in the hands of you right now, you know, to people that never would have normally had that experience. And
Yeah,
that's just exciting,
it is.
that's just,
The other thing
it's
too,
fun.
as you're talking about that, Wes, is if you were to ask anyone listening to this, do you want to live a good life? You want to feel like you're
Hmm.
living a good life? I mean, to me, what AI is opening up specifically, we've been talking through the lens of Alex today and executive coaching, but AI in general, scarcity around the resources that often are what's needed to help people live their best life, the coaching, the development, the learning, the wisdom, the mentorship and things like that. It's making it more accessible for everyone to be able to get a taste of some of that, to be able to live their best life and be the best them they can be. And I think that is a beautiful picture of the future that should excite all of us, regardless of the type of work that we do. That we have this tremendous opportunity to use it for abundance and use it as an opportunity to eliminate barriers that a lot of people have experienced, of being able to get the things they need to be able to live their best life and be the best person they can be for the people that they care about. And I think that's incredible. Um, I want to ask you both this because we've kind of been all over the place, which is very typical for this podcast. But I want to ask you this: we have covered a lot, but is there something you wanted to cover today that we haven't so far? Mikey, I'll start with you.
No, I don't think so. I, well, maybe one thing. Yeah, the notion that as leaders are evaluating what they should look for in an AI partner and how they should use it, you have specific questions around the language model that you just need to understand how it works.
Okay.
And then the second part is that the knowledge base. Alex has pointed at admired leadership, but you really do want something that is static, and you don't want the AI that you're introducing to your organization to just be the language model and that's it. You need a knowledge base that attacks. So ask about what it is. And so if you're going in and you've got a very specific goal around AI being used for marketing, right? You need to understand what is the knowledge base that it's pointed at. Otherwise, you might just be like, okay, this tool has a good user interface, but at the end of the day, it's just providing the same type of things that a Google search would. And so ask those questions. The third way is like, how much semantics layer, how much governance do you have over that semantic layer as well? And so you're looking for a tool that you can inform the tool how to think of you as well. So a lot of the tools that you go to right now, the how much they flatter you is really self-evident in the way that the answer comes back.
Hmm.
And you need to prompt, and this is what I recommend anybody to do. You need to prompt the answer every time to be as critical as you think as you can be when you're answering it. And that way the flowery language just kind of goes away. But if you've got an AI, a tool that you're using that is actually tuned specifically with the idea of like, you know, giving hard truths out right away, not sugarcoating anything, not because that flowery language stuff that is like Gemini does that chat, the entry level stuff is all has that flattery everywhere. And you want to be able to influence that semantics layer. And so if you don't have the ability those are probably the three main things that I wanted leaders who are evaluating what their AI and how they should use it for them to think through. How does that knowledge, the model work? How does the knowledge base work? And how much accessibility do you have to the semantic layer as well?
That's really
Ask those
good.
questions.
And so, CEOs, if that's something you're not comfortable with, then whoever on within your business is the person who knows the most about technology. You need to be meeting with them and starting to learn
Well,
and
that's an
understand.
important part, but be careful if this is just a question that is thrown to the technology partner, they might be answering the question from an infrastructure and hardware point of view, which isn't even one of the layers that I mentioned. From a people focused point of view, these three layers that I mentioned, the language model, this, and really is just understanding how it works, the knowledge base and the semantics level is something that your IT guy might not even be thinking about at all. He might be thinking about where it's going to be hosted, whether or not they need to set up a separate AWS account, how much hardware they're going to have to bring on.
Mm.
And if they're going to be answering that question from ease of their implementation, they might not be answering your real question.
So reach out maybe to your chief people officer,
Yeah.
or other folks that deal more on like the people operations side. Is that what I'm hearing you
Right.
say, Mikey?
Yep. Exactly.
Good call out there. Wes, how about you? Anything come to mind for you that we haven't covered yet today that you think is really important that we do?
I don't know that we'd have time to cover it completely, but I think the one thing that really comes to mind, again, I was thinking about this on the plane on the way over here, and trying to channel. We have some people in our firm that are leading these AI conversations, to Mikey's point, for organizations. So they're being hired to come in and facilitate these conversations. And I think the one key thing that comes out that's not thought of, because initially we think, how should we use this? How should we approach it? All those kind of things. But we got into it a little bit. But one of the things to think about is how, not what are the guardrails, but how do we as an organization go about establishing the guardrails and what those are? And I think there's some organizations and companies out there putting out, here are the guardrails you need to have. But I think what we're finding is those are different for each organization.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're also finding out they're definitely different for individuals as well. So how do I go about establishing those guardrails that I need to put up, so I ensure my use of AI is making me better and not eroding skills that I'm going to need over time. It's not eroding our team like it could, because those are very real operational risks. Those are
Right.
very real developmental risks that are out there. And that is, if you really, again, get to the root of where people's fear and anxiety and reservation is around all that, it'll be in that space. And it's real. That those and some of that for sure is happening. But if you can step back and first have the conversation of, okay, how are we going to establish guardrails? That conversation can have huge impact across a team, across an organization. And so that would be the piece that I would say, man, if we really wanted to get into this, we would go about talking about, how do you establish these guardrails? What kind of conversations do you have? And that kind of thing. But
Well, it
we,
sounds
we've
like
got
you just
we
created a
got
part two,
well,
a
we've
part
got
two
some
of this.
folks who, we've got some colleagues who that's what they do.
Oh, that's
They would
great.
be much better at that. Yeah. So yeah, if there's CEOs on here, who are trying to figure that out, we that's what we do. I mean, in our advising and coaching space, is we
Yeah.
facilitate those conversations and do them in a very bespoke way. We don't come in with a one pager that says, or a
Sure.
PowerPoint deck. We are kind of very anti PowerPoint deck to our workbooks.
And
We
much of
actually
their
facilitate good
learning is
conversation.
put together on a weekly basis in our weekly newsletter called Confluence that you can find on Substack, which is the subtitle of Confluence is the intersection of leadership, communication, and AI technology, right? And so this conversation is exactly the kind of conversation that we're having over on Confluence on a weekly basis. It comes out once a week. Sometimes it might feel a little bit dense, but it's well written, and it's really just trying to help leaders understand where we're headed. We've been writing it for more than a year, and as a weekly publication, it's been something that has really helped me internally. Like even if it wasn't available, we've got 10,000 subscribers or more that are reading Confluence on a weekly basis. But I'm just super happy that it's written just internally. It's a great benefit to our team.
It's also dumped into an AI podcast creator, and so it's a podcast, free podcast too. And that podcast is done by AI. It reads through the newsletter and creates a podcast for that newsletter each week.
That's fantastic. And so as we think about, as we get ready to wrap up here, we want people to be able to reach out, get in touch, learn more about Admired Leadership and Alex. What is the best, easiest way for people to learn more about Admired Leadership and or Alex?
Leadwithalex.com. So you could go to Admired Leadership and find it, but if you're specifically looking for where Alex is, leadwithalex.com, and that'll put you on a page where you can sign up for a free trial right away and start having a conversation with Alex.
That's
And
perfect.
this is where I have the best job in the world. Uh, I would love to talk to anybody and everybody. So Jason has my email, and I, I I love chatting leadership with people. So I'm happy
Absolutely. And both
to
of you
meet with
guys
folks
are
too.
on LinkedIn. You got good looking profiles. We're going to make sure we get people pointed that way. And in the notes, also, we're going to make sure we capture all this information for everybody so they can reach out, learn more about you, reach out and get in touch with Wes, learn more about Alex and the future of how we run and operate businesses at a people level. Guys, this has been absolutely fascinating, highly valuable. And thank you for doing our first ever live broadcast of Working Forward from the People Forward Network.
Great.
Until next time, everybody, thanks for joining us, Wes and Mikey. We'll see you next time. Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
Jason. We really appreciate you, man.
You too. Take care, everybody. Thank you for joining today.